This is not surrender. This is just in case. And with a warning, too. I want to say some thank yous. Just some things about this weekend that couldn't have happened with a lot of people. Jen and your energy and ideas are uncontainable. And it wasn't, she got the venue for us. She kicked out some student group. She said, no, we're gonna do it today, which is great. The programs, the cards. She came down last week to do a dry run of the AV system. Hey, Jen, thanks so much. And even your extracurriculars are okay. You know what I mean. Thanks, Sean Lake, also. Sean, unfortunately, has some experience in running a Memorial Weekend. So in a way, thank you, Glenn, for showing us what to do all the while. Thanks, Sean. Jason and Melissa for the flowers. It's impossible. By the house later. Maria, 15 years ago, you made us a chocolate cake for our wedding. And this weekend you got, 15 years ago you made a chocolate cake for our wedding and coordinated. Ben Sharp, he's not here, he's in the UK, but lucky for us, he's a very capable guy of buying Kit Kat bars. One of Liz's favorites, and while she was over there, she developed a taste for them, so we'll have some of those at the house. Thanks, Ben, for sending them over. Jen De La Fuente, thank you for organizing the walk tomorrow and digging up 4 cases of sold-out wine that Liz really liked, the Drew Pinot that we can have this afternoon as well. Thank you, Liberty Foundation. We are indebted to you. Sorry. Your expertise, shared in such critical junctures with such kindness and compassion were profoundly helpful. Thank you, Pacific Ridge and Encinitas Country Day, your schools, but your communities. And those communities really stepped up in this time for us. Chaplain Steve, thanks for repeat performance. That was really helpful. And Laura, thoughtful remarks, coming coast to coast, going first in a lot of ways. Thank you. Jessica McCarthy. Jessica's probably the only person in the world that could tell Liz to do something, and Liz would do it. I'm pretty sure there's a subset of one, and you use that superpower wisely. I think Liz's symptoms were kind of weird, and Jessica said, "You're going to go to the doctor," and she did. So I think that loving bossiness gave us a few more years with Liz. And you dropped everything to come down in December, to be on our side and spread your iron gut, level-headed pragmatism in December. It's a priceless gift. Thank you. Kelly, how lucky are we to have a storyteller that really knew Liz in our midst? So Kelly, thank you for that. You really got her. Dave and Sandy, you started this whole thing. You raised a phenomenal person. And to steal a line for Kelly, left us all better. I did say Dave and Sandy. Dave, I said Sandy. And lastly, all of you guys for joining the weekend. It is really a surreal experience to go through grief. You don't really know where you are, but it's even more surreal to look around and see everybody. It's an opportunity I don't want to squander. Liz was awesome in so many ways, and that awesomeness was kind of crafted by interactions with each one of you. There's some folks that aren't here tonight or today that did that as well, and so we're thinking about them as well. But all of you made Liz who she was. I saw you in Liz. And now I see Liz in you. So thank you for being here. That's just the intro. Hold on. Liz typically worked my speeches down. She's not here to do that, so it's going to be pretty far. But to organize my thoughts, there's 3 things, and I need some our audience participation. Repeat after me. I miss you, Liz. I miss you, Liz. Okay, one more time. Wait. I miss you, Liz. I miss you, Liz. I love you, Liz.
I love you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz.
All right, that's our organization. The first one is I miss you, Liz. There's so many things I miss about Liz that I thought it might be better to just include the things that I don't miss about Liz. But, there was one thing that I really, couldn't really stand about Liz is the way she sneezed. And I explained to her how you sneeze correctly. And you know what? She changed that for me. There's nothing I don't miss. But here are the top 5 things I miss about her in no particular order. And I realize what this is going to sound like. It's going to sound a little bit like when you order your food at a restaurant and the waiter says, "Excellent choice." I'll take the sea bass. Well, excellent choice. What else is he going to say? Of course. And so what am I going to say? What else am I going to say? And I'm going to tell you how awesome she was and how much I miss her and how great she was to everybody. Okay, so just bear with me. That is pretty much what I'm going to say. But it means more than just excellent choice. I miss talking with Liz. She was a great listener. And by the way, Kelly and Laura and Dave and Sandy and Jessica and I have not compared notes, so I'm going to repeat a couple things. But she was a great listener. She paid attention. She cared deeply. She engaged. She asked questions. I think she knew that whoever she was talking to didn't necessarily know what they were trying to say. Her goal wasn't to judge or jump to conclusions, but to probe and help whoever it was to talk to get to the root of the issue. And that's why I felt so good after I talked to her. She wasn't just listening. She was guiding me to a better understanding of what I was trying to say. I miss watching her make decisions. She was herself, not anybody else. Not everything caught her attention, but the things that did, she examined really closely and trusted her own judgment. She challenged herself to live intentionally, not just to take whatever was thrown at her, but to put herself where she wanted to be, to know what her priorities were, and more importantly, why those were her priorities. When she made a decision, it was considered, it was deliberate. She didn't assign blame when things went crazy. She just re-examined, learned, and applied that to the next decision. She got better and better and better at making decisions. I miss that about her. I miss laughing with her. She was funny. She didn't make a lot of jokes, but when she did, they were funny. I make a lot of jokes, and they don't always work. But her ratio was near 100%. She saw humor in a lot of places, usually about just absurd things, but almost very rarely about making fun of any people. I miss thinking with her. She was serious. She's a serious person. She didn't shy away from deep topics. She also didn't hold it against you if you didn't agree with her. She could strongly believe in something without having to put down the other side. I miss her humility. She rarely, if ever, her own horn. You ever wonder why that was? I think when she accomplished something noteworthy, she enjoyed from the accomplishment, not from talking about it. Her happiness came from the little things that don't require to be heralded, to be enjoyed. Little things that need notice, but not to be put on a pedestal. Much in the way she favored little nutritious snacks over a few big meals, she found happiness in little easy-to-digest chunks of life's nooks and crannies. I miss her writing. She wanted so desperately to connect. She knew it was easy to connect superficially, but it's a challenge to connect. She struggled with her writing. She needed the right balance, the emotion and respect. I'm glad she struggled because she used to say there's no such thing as good writing, only good rewriting. And she wrote and she wrote and she wrote until only honesty. I miss that. Liz. I love you, Liz. I want to tell you my. Okay, kids, you can start another project because it's going to take a while. It's a goofy style. First met Liz over 30 years ago, and my reaction was, "Who is that?" I had the attention span of a fruit fly back then, but I was captivated. I asked Laura, "What's up with your cute kid sister?" To which I think she replied, "Yeah, if you creep, she's in high school." Well, to my credit, 4 months prior, I was in high school too. So whatever it started, it started. But who was that? Who was Liz Rawson? I had to find out. I was compelled. And back then, when you wanted to get to know somebody, you just flipped through their CD collection. But I couldn't do that because it was all over the place. The only window I had was through Laura. And Laura met Pete, my buddy. And Pete and I drove cross country together. And that's all I had. That was my window into this who was that person? And so I started there. Aside from being a protective big sister, what do I know about Laura? We went to college together, so I knew 3 things about Laura. She went to college. She could drink. We went to Cornell. And she had a cool taste in music. No red flags, okay, but also not a lot of progress. Who is Liz Rawson? I needed more information. 2 other likely places to look into when you really want to get to know somebody: their friends from high school and their parents. And for reasons I can't remember, somewhere in the late 80s, I got the chance to spend an afternoon with Liz and some of her high school buddies at Cornell in a fraternity house. And what did we do? We played quarters. I was nervous that Liz would think that this was too ordinary, that her friends would reject me for the cliche that I was on the surface, living out. Quick, I need to make this afternoon of drinking games into something more or risk blowing the entire thing. I suggested that we move the cup 20 or 30 feet away. But we'll never get it in, reasonably complained the group. Yes, we will, and when we do, you will never forget it. We tried until finally we went in and we erupted with cheers. My stupid prank to the wrong crowd would look exactly that. But to Liz's high school friends, credit, they embraced the challenge. They slogged through the boredom and rewarded by an epic quarter shot that they will never forget. Who is Liz Rawson? At that point, I knew she had a close-knit group of friends that knew and trusted her. They were comfortable in their own skin, enough to make their own judgments of what's cool and what's not, and giving a slightly obsessive fraternity brother from Cornell a chance. Who is Liz Rawson? I'm not quite sure yet, but she does have cool friends. Next up, the parents. I had seen Pete live through the in-law integration. And shortly after Pete and Laura were engaged, Pete asked Liz's dad if it was okay to call him Dave. To which Dave responded, "You can call me Dr. Rawson." Okay, so the dad's a bit of a tough guy. But he also had a fridge full of beer in the garage that never seemed to replenish itself. So what's going on? Dave, or Dr. Rawson at the time, was professionally associated with Stanford when I was there. And much earlier, I tagged along with Pete visiting Laura at the Rawson family house in Los Altos Hills, and I caught a glimpse or two of Liz, and that was all I got, and that was fine with me because I was fully aware that Liz was dating a very, very tall man, or some dude that could fix a Jeep using nothing but a lift ticket wicket and some chewing tobacco. And after all, I knew who I was, man. I was just the friend of her sister's fiancé. Blech. And regardless of what that quarter shot was, I knew I was at or near the bottom of the ladder. Maybe the parents could provide me with an edge. So I'd manufacture reasons to hang out at their house. In fact, I think I invited myself to Thanksgiving at your house once. Thank you about that one. And got a friend, a wingman for that one. And maybe Liz would be passing by. Sometimes I'd run across Dave on campus. "Oh, hi, Dr. Rawson. Hi, Andy." Nice day, huh, Dr. Rawson? Sure is. 5 minutes of awkward, short talk, and then finally Dave would give me a little nugget. Oh, by the way, I think Liz is up in Tahoe this weekend, but she might swing by the house later. Thanks, Dave. This would happen a few times running in campus, and finally, whenever I saw him, he'd be like, okay, 3. Got it, that's all I need. So I started paying more and more attention to her parents. Who was Liz Rawson? Let's take a look at where she came from. So I took a look at her dad, and things started feeling eerily familiar. Earmuffs. She had a dad who was a highly accomplished, science-based, arrogant know-it-all, who was deeply in love with his kids. Wait, that's just like my dad. I took a look at her mom. Her mom was a strong, independent, resourceful, active believer in women's rights who entirely devoted herself to her family. Like, wait a minute, that's my mom. I didn't really know Liz Rawson at that point, but she had a cool big sister, even cooler high school friends, a fun-loving, high-achieving parents that loved her to pieces. I asked Pete for some help. Pete, you gotta help me out. What's with Liz? Do I have a shot? I don't know, Andy. She's a cool chick. Well, she's a cool chick, that's for sure. Maybe one day I could get to know her firsthand. And that day came in the summer of 1996. Laura maintains that she didn't actively try to set us up, but Liz and I had an hour to ourselves on Newbury Street in Boston that summer, and it changed my life. We talked about grad school stuff, but she wore a long flowered dress or skirt and a white top, both of which complemented her tan skin and athletic build, a physique you can only get by riding a mountain bike all summer and a snowboard all winter. And never before had I been so interested in whether or not rural North Carolinians had a universal right to internet access. Tell me more about that, Liz. I mean, how could you not be? Looking at those eyes that smile, framed by the supermodel cheekbones. Liz Rawson, you rock. So we were both in grad school on different coasts, and the long distance thing would never work out. In fact, I made a spreadsheet detailing why it wouldn't. And Liz, bless her heart, didn't dump me right then and there because I made a stupid spreadsheet to explain myself. But the spreadsheet, it turns out, was wrong. We had a connection that could overpower any rational explanation. We were in love. But I wasn't out of the woods yet. After we finished grad school and after we decided to try our luck here in San Diego, we crossed the country in her Jeep, and on the way we met up with Krista Langford and her posse in Alabama. And I'll never forget Krista's mom. I don't know why this makes me cry. This part makes me cry. I'll never forget her mom. As we got ready to leave town, she grabbed me, just one-on-one, looked me in the eye and said, "Lizzie's special. You remember that." Yes, ma'am, I will. We settled in life in San Diego, and things are seemingly in the clear, and the next test arrived in the mail one day. Liz's bestie from Syracuse, Jessica Schwartz, was getting married. Liz, of course, was invited, but Jessica, in her loving bossiness, declared that she would, under no circumstances, issue Liz's invitation to her wedding with a +1. There will be no +1s at my wedding. Jessica absolutely needed names. I'm not sure how much deliberation there was, but even after getting right with Liz's sister, her high school friends, and her parents, I wasn't sure that Liz thought I was ready to be named names, or named by name as her date to Jessica's wedding, but ultimately, I made the cut. And performed horribly, but that's a story for another time. I connected directly with Liz, her sister, high school friends, parents, her friends. It's at this point, and all of this seemed to point in the same direction. They explain why Liz is as cool as Liz is. That's a little Seussian, didn't it? They love Liz as much as I do. But there would be one more test. The cottage. Yeah, they say if you want to get walk a mile in their shoes. And the reason they say this is because that's a lot easier to say than if you want to get to know someone, you need to spend a weekend with their entire family, 250 assorted cousins, uncles, and aunts in a cottage in Michigan that has generations of shared inside jokes, but only one bathroom. In 90-degree weather with 95% humidity and no air conditioning. I loved it. The sense of family was so real, the people so connected. It reminded me of my own experiences in the woods in Vermont. I'd learned enough about who Liz Rawson was. She was real. I was lucky. And we were in love. We let our love guide us into many incredible adventures. And throughout the years and through meeting many of you, I've learned there's many different ways to fall in love with Liz. Romantically, platonically, maternally, intellectually. I've seen them all. And why is that? My guess is that she had high standards for herself. Those standards, I think, made her who she was. So where did they come from? Why did she have them? I'm only one data point, but if I had to put my finger on it, I'd boil it down to this equation. She was looking for ideas, and she examined them, and with those examinations, she painted a picture of her future and a vision of a very, very high standard. That thought process she had developed over the many years was her own. She took in so many different influences. She engaged with the world, seeking the feedback, seeking the new ideas. And ideas could come from the world's most elite universities or from a stranger in the grocery store offering unsolicited advice. She took those ideas and she processed them. She processed them with one of the sharpest analytical minds I've ever encountered. That engagement with the world, many, many different inputs she collected, she'd process it and would result in a vision of her future that was shining and seductive, but completely realistic. Her vision was fantastic, but it was not fantasy. I fell in love with that vision because she built it. It was a reflection of her values, paid for by her meaningfully rigorous thought process, not ordered out of a catalog or copied off the neighbor's homework or wherever, it was just sitting there by default. It was hers. So there's a couple things you can fall in love with. You know, you could fall in love with that engagement. Her seeking the feedback and the information. You saw this in her reading. You saw that in her writing. She was engaged and saw immense value in connecting with you or the world, soaking up every word you wrote and agonizing over every word she wrote to be sure it was true, honest, and nothing else. You could fall in love with her analytical processing of her world. You experienced this when you realized she was listening, really listening to you, questioning you, not judging or trying to change you, but questioning and challenging you. Or you can fall in love with that resultant vision, her sense of right and wrong, what's really important and what's noise. Her family was important. The community was important. Friendship was important. Self-reliance, winning the long game, not the spill, but how you clean up is important. I fell in love with it all. I love Liz Laats. She had the healthiest diet, but she could mow down a Kit Kat now and again. She read voraciously, but she also made time for People magazine. She had a respect for the arts. She loved stopping at museums, Greece, Chicago, London, Venice, but she laughed her ass off at Jackass. She had almost impossibly high standards for herself, but she accepted my shortcomings. She protected me, but she challenged me. She spreadsheet. And she laughed at my funny jokes, explained to me why the others weren't so funny using social and historical references that only she could. She was alive, seize the day, be in the moment, strive for truth. But she was human. Laugh at yourself. Flip-flops and a trucker hat are okay. Chillax. I love you, Liz. Excellent choice. Thank you, Liz. I heard somewhere that wellness is based on mindfulness, and mindfulness is based on gratitude. And so for giving thanks, here's a few things that I'm thankful for. I want to thank Liz for her leadership. You know, in recent years, there's been some published research that challenges the idea that our best leaders are the extroverts. The only extroverted people are well-suited for leadership roles. And what's wrong with introverts, and can't they lead? Liz grabbed onto this idea really strongly. She is self-identified as an introvert, and I think for a while she watched me, more extrovert, accept those leadership roles. And when the research found that introverts made great leaders too, I think something clicked for her. She couldn't reconcile how she felt like an introvert, yet at the same time she naturally led our family. When the study was published, I think she thought it made a lot of sense, and she was a leader. She was leading us with her own natural style. She called the shots and led our family through thick and thin, so thank you, Liz. I also want to thank Liz for making Nixon happen. Everybody here heard of Nixon? Nixon.com. You've heard it? Well, Nixon, for the record, was Chad's idea. It was all his. I was the business guy, I just bolted on. Chad jokes that he's the mouth and I'm the brain. Well, here's the truth. Liz was the day I decided Nixon was a good idea for me to pursue, I called Liz and I told her, critical moment. She could have said, what are you, crazy? You're at 80 grand and you want to make watches and sell them to snowboarders? But she didn't. She thought it was great. Starting a business has its challenges, we know that, and having Liz's support from before the beginning made it possible for me to accept those challenges. I shudder to think how many hours and hours of listening to me wrestle with Nixon things Liz endured, how many freakouts and anxiety attacks and moments of doubt that she held me through, how many weeks away from the family she managed. Year was our Christmas party, and not because somebody's going to throw a Christmas tree off the top of the roof or something silly like that. That would never happen, but because I got to give my little speech at the parties, and at the beginning I winged it, and Liz scolded me. To speak is such a high privilege, and I was winging it. She organized my thoughts and focused them on what really mattered. She was a source of strength for my entire career. The most trusted a person could ever ask for. Liz, thank you, Liz, for teaching me love. Being loved is great. Being taught love is sublime. And finally, Liz, thank you for our family. Excuse me. Here's this chick, effortlessly beautiful, loaded with brain power, the world at her fingertips, and she finds her calling is to have a family. She devotes herself to creating an environment of support, strength, compassion, acceptance. Anybody who walked through the door would feel comfortable being themselves and being allowed to get what they were looking for. A few laughs, an understanding ear, a rah-rah speech, a stern talking to, a warm meal, a hug, a smile, a place to breathe, or sometimes a New England sports team on a big... Liz always knew it was about the relationships and the memories. She built those up bit by bit, a gigantic fortress. Her most important relationships and most important memories were with Margot, Gwen, and Drew. Kids, did you ever wonder what Mom wanted to talk about when she and I walked lamb chop? Or when you had your headphones on, watching movies on Wed and Mam? Or after you went to bed? Or before you woke up? Did you ever wonder what she wanted to talk about when she was a chemo? Or what she wanted to talk about when she and I were sipping margaritas at Mike Lowe's birthday parties? She wanted to talk about you, everything about you, everything around you. She worried about you the way she worries about me. She wondered about your future. She marveled at your growth and your many talents. She was inspired and energized by you. She had a profound, pure, and uplifting love, and you gave her strength. So thank you, Liz. Almost done. People ask how we're doing. And I can't tell you how warm that makes me feel. And I know all the emails and emails and cards that I haven't read and haven't responded to. That's okay. I know that. But thank you for understanding that. Well, how we're doing. You know, poets have tried loss and death and how those things form the living. So I want to level set everybody's expectations about what I'm about to say. It is beyond my abilities to describe how we're doing. There. Are your expectations low? Now I'll give it a try to expect it. But even with those low expectations, I need to take a shortcut. I need a metaphor to help me describe how we're doing. So I'm going to use the story of Apollo 13. As the son of an engineer who worked on the guidance system for that mission and other missions, I've paid some attention to that story, and it goes a little like this. Apollo's 13 mission was to explore a portion of the moon, but before the spacecraft reached the moon, there was an explosion on board that partially crippled it. An oxygen tank, I think. The damaged spaceship didn't have enough oxygen or power to complete its mission. So the mission to land on the moon was aborted, and the astronauts worked feverishly with the Earth-based mission control plan. The damage was done. There wasn't enough oxygen to get home, going the normal speed, and there wasn't enough power to get home before the oxygen ran out. They needed a way to turn around back home quickly using very little power in the process. It was decided that the ship would use the gravitational power of the moon to propel it back to the Earth. If the ship could precisely enter the Earth's orbit, zip around the backside, and then exit at the moon's orbit exactly at the right time, it could reset its trajectory, critically conserve enough energy, and return to the Earth. All the while, keeping the structural integrity of the spacecraft intact and protecting the safety of the astronauts. Usually in Apollo missions, there's 100% constant communication between the spacecraft and mission control. And in order for this plan to work, they would necessarily be silent as the ship shot around the back of the moon. The astronauts would disappear. And if everything worked out, they would reappear. The speed of the ship going into that partial lunar orbit was critical. Too fast or too slow, and the power would be exhausted. The direction of that ship going into that path was equally critical. Just a fraction off, and you crash into the moon or you drift out into space. The crew and the mission control people faced a catastrophe. And with this background, they succeeded. So what's the metaphor? The kids and I are the astronauts. We're in that ship, a little damaged, trying to figure out what to do next in the face of extreme uncertainty. Liz plays two roles. The first one, she's the moon. As the moon, she's providing us with the power to get our trajectory right and propel us back towards Earth. We need her power. We don't have enough on our own. Her gravity acts both as a tether and propulsion. We're stuck in orbit for a brief while, gaining speed, reversing direction, only to expend everything we have to exit on our own power, on our own path forward. Her massive presence accelerating us homeward, as required by God's laws of physics. We cannot be with her. We cannot land and join this mission. Plans we made to explore, discover, to challenge together, not be played out. This profound sense of loss is as devastating as the urgent feeling that focus on the future is necessary. Those two feelings, loss, hope, hit us simultaneously. You all are ground control. As ground control, you're taking the communication from us and measuring all the doodads on the thing, grinding out the calculations, and guiding us back to safety. You can't possibly be on that spacecraft. And you can't possibly know how it feels to be alone in the vastness of space. But without your connection, we would be lost. We as astronauts feel comfort for the connection. We have full faith that our path, while isolated in that coldness, is being tracked every second. We are 200,000 miles away from home, but making progress every second. We work as a team, not frozen by a catastrophe, but emboldened by it, inspired by it, sharpened by it. We make mistakes. We improvise. provide solutions to unanticipated problems. We never lose hope. I said Liz has two roles in this imperfect metaphor. Thank you for the creative license. The second role, she's JFK. JFK, she got this entire Apollo thing going. She set the whole thing up for success. She recruited only the best and the brightest for her ground control. She hired a captain through the previous rigorous process that I've outlined before. And staffed the ship with 3 resourceful, hardworking, quick-thinking, graceful, under pressure, handsome, and beautiful astronauts. Then she trained us all. She trained us to pay attention, say nice things to each other, to listen, to engage, to think for ourselves, to communicate, to live and to triumph in the face of catastrophe, to wonder what we're doing here, to ask big questions of ourselves and to endure the struggle for answers, to set high standards for ourselves, to appreciate, to savor the moments of peace, the moments of progress, to grip each other strongly, to accept each other, to love. So that's how we're doing. Liz has put so many things in motion for me, Margot, Gwen, and Drew to be okay. Our oxygen tanks exploded. She course corrected and put us on that perfect trajectory. Just the right amount of speed, use her pole, get turned around, headed back home. We feel isolated, but we're well trained and feel immense comfort in our connection with you as a group, and selected by Liz herself to be in our lives. And with your connection, we will ultimately make our way safely back to Earth. Thank you. Let's listen and hear from Liz herself.
story is much too sad to be told, but practically everything leaves me totally cold. The only exception I know is the case when I'm out on a quiet spree, fighting vainly the old ennui, and I suddenly turn and see your fabulous face. I get no kick from champagne. Mere alcohol doesn't thrill me at all. So tell me, why should it be true that I get a kick out of you? Some get a kick from cocaine. I'm sure that if I took even one sniff, that would bore me terrifically too. But I get a kick out of you. I get a kick every time I see you're standing there before me. I get a kick, though it's clear to me you obviously don't adore me. I get no kick in a plane, flying too high with some guy in the sky is my idea of nothing to do. Yet I get a kick out of you. I get a kick every time I see you standing there before me. I get a kick, though it's clear to me you obviously don't adore me. I get no kick in a plane, flying too high with some guy in the sky is my idea of nothing to do. Yet I get a kick out of you. I get a kick out of you. other nights like this, and I'll be standing here with someone new. There will be other songs to sing, another fall, another spring, but there will never be another you. There will be other lips that I may kiss, but they won't thrill me like yours used to do. Yes, I may dream a million dreams, but how can they come true if there will never ever be another you? Yes, I may dream a million dreams, but how can they come true if there will never ever be another you?
I drink good coffee every morning. Comes from a place that's far away. When I'm done, I feel like without you here, there is less to say. I don't want you thinking I'm unhappy. What is closer to the truth? That if I lived till I was 102, I just don't think I'll ever get over you. I'm no longer moved to drink strong whiskey. I shook the hand of time, and I knew that if I lived till I could no longer climb my stairs, I just don't think I'll ever get over you. Face it dances and it haunts me. The laughter still ringing in my ears. still find pieces of your presence here. Even after all these years, I don't want you thinking that I don't get asked to dinner, 'cause I'm young to say that I sometimes do. Even though I may soon feel the touch of love, I just don't think I'll ever get over you. If I lived till I was 102, I just don't think I'll ever get over you.
Okay, this one's for Gabby.
Clouds of white and the bright
brightness of day. I like the dark and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, singing, how do you do? They really say, I love you. I hear babies cry and I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than we'll know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like a lemon drops high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. And the dreams that you dare to, why, oh, why can't I?
Fall is here, hear the yell, back to school, ring the bell, brand new shoes, walking blues, climb the fence, books and pens. I can tell that we are gonna be friends. Yes, I can tell that we are gonna be friends. Walk with me, Susie Lee, through the park and by the tree. We can rest upon the ground and look at all the bugs we found. Safely walk to school without a sound. We safely walk to school without a sound. Well, here we are, no one else. We walk to school all by ourselves. There's dirt on our uniforms from chasing all the ants and worms. We clean up and now it's time to learn. We clean up and now it's time to learn. Numbers, letters, learn to spell, nouns and books and show and tell. Playtime we will throw the ball, then back to class, through the hall. Teacher marks our height against the wall. The teacher marks our height against the wall. And we don't notice any time pass, 'cause we don't notice anything. We sit side by side in every class. The teacher thinks that I sound funny, but she likes it when you sing. Tonight I'll dream in my bed while silly thoughts run through my head of the bugs in alphabet. And when I wake tomorrow I'll bet you and I will walk together again. 'Cause I can tell that we are gonna be friends. Yes, I can tell that we are gonna be friends. Do you remember when we first met? I sure do. It was sometime in early September. lazy about it. You made me wait around. I was so crazy about you, I didn't mind. So I was late for class, I locked my back to yours. It wasn't hard to find your painted flowers on it. Guess that I was afraid that if you rolled away, you might not roll back my direction real soon. Well, I was crazy about you then and now, but the craziest thing of all, over 10 years have gone by, and you're still mine. We're locked in time. Let's rewind. Do you remember?
And I was about to say, I feel like about the most unlucky person in the world right now, after hearing some phenomenal comments from everyone, and ultimately from Liz's own lips. What incredible inspiration. This has been a phenomenal, amazing experience for us to participate in. And I had this whole big thing planned that I have enough common sense to know you would hear so little of it right now, given all that we have taken in. But I just want to say this, and I met with Liz in the last week of her life, and one of the things we talked about was our understanding of the ultimate, of the divine. And she described her impression or her perspective as that of a higher power that could best be understood in the image of Star Wars, and the analogy of the moon and launch in Apollo 13. Star Wars, that force. She described an overwhelming, enveloping sense of ultimate goodness and power, a sense that there's something more and that it is good. And I believe it's that kind of awareness and perspective that can be the source of hope and give us a spirit of adventure about this life and the next. And maybe I'll just close with this analogy that I think just beautifully summarizes that spirit of adventure and hope and moving forward. And it's attributed to Henri Nouwen, and so we'll conclude with this. Imagine the scene, if you will. Two babies are in utero, confined to the wall of their mother's womb, and they're having a conversation. We'll call these twins Ego and Spirit. Spirit says to Ego, I know you're going to find this difficult to accept, but I truly believe there is life after birth. Ego responds, don't be ridiculous. Look all around you. This is all there is. Why must you always be thinking about something beyond this reality? Accept your lot in life, make yourself comfortable, and forget about all this life after birth nonsense. Spirit quiets down for a while, but her inner voice won't allow her to remain silent any longer. Ego, now don't get mad, but I have something else to say. I also believe that there is a mother. A mother, Ego guffaws. How can you be so absurd? You've never seen a mother. Why can't you accept that this is all there is? The idea of a mother is crazy. You're here alone with me. This is your reality. Now grab hold of that cord, go into your corner, and stop being so silly. Trust me, there is no mother. Spirit reluctantly stops her conversation with Ego, but her restlessness soon gets the better of her. Ego, she implores, please listen without rejecting my idea. Somehow I think that those constant pressures we both feel, those movements that make us so uncomfortable sometimes, that continual repositioning and all the closing in that seems to be taking place as we keep growing is getting us ready for a place of glowing light, and we'll experience it very soon. Now I know you're absolutely insane, replies Ego. All you've ever known is darkness? You've never seen light? How can you even contemplate such an idea? You're a distinct separate being. Darkness and pressures and a closed-in feeling are what life is all about. You'll have to fight it as long as you live. Now grab your cord and please stay still. Spirit relaxes for a while, but finally she can contain herself no longer. Ego, I have only one more thing to say, and then I'll never bother you again. Go ahead, Ego responds impatiently. I believe all these pressures and all of this discomfort is not only going to bring us to a new life, but when we experience it, we're going to meet Mother face to face. and know an ecstasy that's beyond anything we have ever experienced up until now. You are really crazy, Spirit. Now I'm truly convinced. We have a lot of questions, right, 4-year-olds? But our sense is this is not all there is. It's something to look forward to, right, 14-year-olds, the ones with the answer. And so in the words of Liz herself, she would say, the Jedi Knights, I'll leave you with this blessing. May the Force be with you. We're concluded.